Wall Street indices end lower in overnight session as the market's comeback attempt fizzles out. The Dow sheds more than 230 points while the Nasdaq falls 1%. Jobless claims data is due tonight. Stocks in the Asia Pacific start on the back foot as recovery on Wall Street stalls. Investors also assess Japan's trade data. The GIFT Nifty is implying a negative start for the Indian market. Crude prices rise. Brent bounces from 6-month low levels to trade above $78 a barrel. EIA report shows a larger than expected drop in U.S. crude oil inventories. The Reserve Bank's monetary policy decision will be announced today. The Monetary Policy Committee is expected to maintain status quo on key policy rates. 50% of the market participants polled by CNBC TV 18 expect the first rate cut only in December. Lok Sabha passes the finance bill. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman says, "We have yielded to the voices after restoring indexation benefits for properties bought before 23rd of July 2024. Good morning in the Mumbai News Center. I'm Sonal Bhutra. You're watching Power Breakfast. Those are the top headlines. It's going to be a very event-heavy day, so we'll keep tracking that for you. But first up, as always, let's take a look at what is happening in the Asian markets. Now, remember, it was a weak handover that we got from the Wall Street, and that is something which is reflecting in the Asian markets as well right now. It's a sharp cut. Taiwanese index down around 2.5%. We have the Hang Seng, which is sitting with cuts of around 1%. Across the board, it is some red on the Asian screen. The Nikkei, for instance, is down 1%. We have a lot of macro data which is expected in the Asian region and which has come as well. China's exports missed expectations. Imports, however, picked up in July. All of it is weighing on the Asian markets as well. The GIFT Nifty, that'll come up for you on the screen because that one is indicating the start for our own markets could be in the red. It's a 188-point cut that we are looking at on the GIFT Nifty right now. That is the implied open for our own markets. So let's see which way things go. The RBI monetary policy will be very important and the comments awaited from the RBI governor as well. Let's talk about the US markets now. Wall Street ended lower as the stocks were unable to hold an early rally on Wednesday. The S&P fell over 40 points, the Nasdaq dipped over 1%, while the Dow Jones shed about 234 points. All three averages have now declined in 4 out of the past 5 sessions. Investors now await weekly jobless claims due later tonight. CNBC's Bertha Coombs gets us a wrap of all the action on Wall Street.
U.S. markets were down across the major indexes on Wednesday, the 4th down day out of 5, as the rally stalled after Monday's big sell-off. The Dow fell 234 points, the S&P 500 was lower by 41, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq was off 171 points. A potential bright spot, though, for the housing market. Mortgage refinance demand soared 16% this past week as interest rates dropped to the lowest levels since May 2023. The average rate for a 30-year fixed mortgage fell to 6.55% from 6.82%. That caused the total mortgage application volume to jump nearly 7%, according to the Mortgage Bankers Association index. Meantime, Warren Buffett now owns more Treasury bills than the U.S. Central Bank, according to a new quarterly financial report. His company, Berkshire Hathaway, holds $234.6 billion in short-term debt securities issued by the U.S. government. As of July 1st, the Federal Reserve owned $195 billion in T-bills. The Fed had loaded up on T-bills during the pandemic, but has since reduced its stake with the improving economy. Meantime, Buffett has the cash on hand to buy more if he's so inclined. Berkshire sold more than $75 billion in stocks during the second quarter. That's what's happening here in the U.S. Back over to you in Mumbai.
All right, that's the U.S. market action. Moving on, JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon believes that the odds of a soft landing for the U.S. economy are around 35 to 40%, making recession the most likely scenario. Let's listen in to what more he had to say.
Markets fluctuate, and I think people overreact a little bit to the daily fluctuation of the market, and sometimes it's for good reason, sometimes it's virtually no reason. And you saw this one, it came way down and went way back up, and but people are projecting, and when they project forward, it affects the markets. We don't know if there's going to be a soft landing, a hard landing, and all the things in between. you know, I've always been a little skeptical that it'll be soft. On the other hand, I'm hoping it's soft, and so you'll see this go up or down. But the important thing I always tell people, it's a little bit, you don't know what it's going to be, and as a business, you got to be prepared for all different potential outcomes and just invest continuously. And you know, whatever happens, American society will get through this easily, other than the geopolitics, where I know we're going to speak about a little bit later. And you know, I was with Warren Buffett yesterday, and we always talk about the resiliency of America. It is extraordinary, and it's in these towns. It's in the universities, it's in the businesses, it's in the governments. They're always looking for ways to improve our lot in life. Well, every day, 325 million Americans go to work, go to their jobs, take care of their families, take care of their kids, you know, build out their house, change a job, and it could be affected by the Fed changing rates by 50 basis points. I don't think so. So if they do it, you know, I'm sure they have good reason to do it, and you know, I'll rely on with their instincts. So I do expect they'll probably do it soon, because they've seen more negative data than they had expected. I mean, stagflation would be a recession with a little bit of inflation. So I think what they do in the short run may or may not directly affect that. Obviously, all things being equal, it reduces the chance or the depth of a recession, but I don't know if it affects really what might happen down the road in terms of stagflation. You know, and so I'm fairly optimistic that we have a mild recession, even a harder one, will be okay. Of course, I'm very sympathetic to people who lose their jobs. You know, you don't want a hard landing, and so, but there's a lot of uncertainty out there, and I've always pointed to geopolitics. I also think the deficits, the spending, the quantitative tightening, the elections, all these things cause, you know, some consternation in markets, and so we'll have to wait and see. You know, does inflation really get back to 2%? I'm a little bit of a skeptic on that too. And I don't look as much at the short-term data as about, you know, the things that are inflationary but are in the future. Deficit spending, green economy, you know, remilitarization of the world. And they haven't really happened yet, but they are going to happen. And they're not deflationary.
Okay, that is an important opinion coming in, and that's the global market action. But how will these cues impact our own markets? We have a research team joining in to tell you just that. This is our Power Prep segment. Good morning, guys. You know, a lot happening today, and that is something we'll be tracking very closely. But Sudarshan, let me come across to you first up. What are the stocks that we'll be focusing on today?
We'll start with Hindalco. Novelis has reported inline set of earnings for Q1, but flooding cost may impact Q2 earnings. Adjusted EBITDA has come in 19% higher at $500 million, and near to medium-term EBITDA per ton guidance maintained at $525 per ton. Godrej Consumer has reported Q1 earnings. Headline numbers were a mild miss, but internals are mixed. India reported volume growth has come at 10% versus estimate of 10 to 12%, and change in business model has impacted Africa revenue. Revenue was down 36% year-on-year. For Apollo Tyres, earnings were below estimates. EBITDA has missed estimates by 10% and was down 14% year-on-year. Sula Vineyards revenue has increased 12%, margin was flat at 28%. Welspun Corp margin expanded 300 bips and profit has risen 47% year-on-year. BSE, it was a strong set of earnings. Revenue has risen 24%, led by increased transaction charges. EBITDA has increased 19% and margin has come into a record high of 47%. Keep an eye on Marico. It has released the update on Bangladesh operations. It says operating conditions in Bangladesh is gradually improving and majority of retail sales force and distributors have resumed operations. UPL High Court of Australia rules in favor of Advanta Seeds and Protean eGov. Sources say Standard Chartered Bank is likely to sell 3.1% equity via block deals. For other companies which have released earnings, companies which have released a good set of earnings are Abbott, ITD Cementation, Gujarat Pipavav, Kirloskar Oil, CCL Products, KIMS and Radico Khaitan, and companies which have reported a weak set of earnings, NHPC, TVS Sri Chakra, GMM Fodler and Lemon Tree Hotels.
Okay, all right. So earnings they keep coming in, but we are towards the fag end of the earnings season now. Thank you, Sudarshan, for that. Let me go across to Hormaz. Hormaz, looks like there could be some reversal in trade today.
A reversal indeed, and that's what the setup, the GIFT Nifty is currently pointing towards. It's a big day, of course, for the bulls because it's some very important event days, and it is the RBI policy today. It's also the weekly expiry for the Nifty. There's some important levels that the Nifty has to keep an eye out for. It ended just below 24,300 yesterday. Then Monday's high of 24,350. That's where the bulls felt a little uncomfortable yesterday, reversed from those levels, and after that is 24,380, which is Tuesday's high. Then that is some important levels that the Nifty needs to keep an eye out for. You just mentioned it's a big day today. It's an RBI policy, the Nifty weekly expiry, and of course we'll keep an eye out for the weekly initial jobless claims also that come out from the US. Now, for most part of the trading session yesterday on Wall Street, the bulls would have felt that it's going to be yet another positive handover, but it wasn't to be, because the indices reversed from the highs of the day. The Dow falling almost 700 points from the highs. All of the three indices ending lower, resulting in a negative handover. That was also because the muted response to the treasury auctions that took place yesterday. So as a result of which the Asian markets have also opened lower. The GIFT Nifty at one point was down 200 points. We've seen some bit of recovery there, currently around 170 points as a gap down, but still a gap down nonetheless. So an important question to be asked is whether the move that we saw yesterday was the start of a sustained recovery or a bull trap ahead of the important events today. And of course, the Nifty Bank was the one that led the recovery in the final hour of trade yesterday because of the weekly expiry. So will that sustain as well? And of course, the beaten down PSU names that have corrected almost 25 to 30% from their peaks, they saw a bit of recovery yesterday. Will that see some reversal today if the market turns wobbly? And it's also important because a lot of these PSUs, be it RVNL, IRCON, Cochin Shipyard, all of them report earnings today. So we'll keep an eye out on this entire PSU basket. But for now, it's a gap down start for the Sensex and the Nifty.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for all those cues, Urmaz. Let me go across to Mangalam now. He's joining in with all the cues from the F&O space. Good morning, Mangalam.
Good morning. So if you look at all the indices yesterday, it was a good close. You had the Nifty closing above that 24,200 sort of mark. We had a good close on the Nifty Bank as well, upwards of 50,000. Mid-caps doing a lot better with a gain of almost 2.5%. All of that would tell you that maybe the downside on the indices are limited. And that will be the test in today's trading session, because after a weak handover from Wall Street, GIFT Nifty is indicating a cut of almost 175 points at the opening near that 24,150 sort of mark. Will that be a dip that the bulls will buy into? Is a question that we'll get an answer into. Why is it that the markets did well yesterday? One of the reasons could also be that the net cash flows were positive. Yes, the FIs sold 3,300 crores, but the DIs went ahead and bought 3,800 crores. So the net inflows were close to 500 crores, and that was one positive flow after a spate of net negative inflows as well. Irrespective of rallies or declines, the FIs continue to sell in index futures. Yesterday as well, they sold about 1,000 crores, and the net swing out there was close to 15,000 contracts. They unwound 5,000 long contracts, added about 10,000 short contracts, and as a result of which, if you compare their positioning from August 1, it's come down by almost 1 lakh long contracts, and the long positioning also has declined by about 10 percentage points, from 66% all the way down to 56% itself. Today's Nifty weekly options expiry, what is the range that the street is playing for? On the way up, 24,400 will be extremely crucial to watch out for. That's where all the call writing action is taking place. And we've seen, resistance around 24,350, 24,380 thereabouts. And at the lower level, 24,200 put has been extremely active as well. In a sense, the option writers are expecting that 24,150 to 24,450 sort of range. On the way up, of course, the 20-day moving average will prove to be a crucial resistance for the Nifty. The Nifty Bank will be important, as everyone's pointed out. It's the RBI policy meet today. Just watch out for a couple of stocks. ABFRL enters F&O ban today. And as we pointed out, granules and Chambal fertilizers are out of F&O ban in today's trading session.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for that, Mangalam. And thank you guys for joining us and telling us what to expect from the trading day today. We'll do one thing. We'll slip into a short break. Up next, Reserve Bank's monetary policy decision will be announced today. We'll get you the expectations after the break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Let's talk about the big event today. The Reserve Bank of India's Monetary Policy Committee will announce its rates decision today. The MPC is expected to leave repo rates unchanged for the 8th consecutive time, according to a CNBC TV18 poll across the country's top economists. Ritu Seng joins in with more details on this one. Ritu.
The big miss on US jobs data, rising expectations of a rate cut from the Federal Reserve next month, the unwinding of yen carry trades, all of these global events are going to weigh on the minds of the MPC members. But as the governor insists, it is domestic cues that are going to guide the RBI. The focus this time around is going to be on inflation commentary, with food inflation reigning at a 6-month high, as well as around the recent regulatory guidelines, specifically on the liquidity coverage ratio, whether there is any rethink at all, the scramble for deposits, the widening credit gap ratio, all of that are going to be focus areas. Now, according to our poll, 100% of the respondents expect no change on rates, given the persistent concerns around inflation on one hand and the continued comfort from growth on the other. The stance of the policy is also widely expected to be left unchanged at withdrawal of accommodation. Now, half the respondents to our poll expect RBI to signal a stance shift only by October and others even later. Our poll also says that the window for a rate cut may only open by December or maybe even early next year. Now, most of the respondents to our poll said they expect the total quantum of rate cuts in this cycle to be around 50 basis points, with a third even expecting a 75 basis point cut in total. But no change is expected on the average CPI forecast for this fiscal, at least in this policy, with RBI reiterating its commitment to get to that 4% CPI mark, and even the current growth forecast is unlikely to be tinkered with. Now, the governor's statement that the markets focus on, that is expected to be more or less even, no big change from last time. So a status quo policy for the 8th consecutive time with a split vote on action. And also keep in mind, this is also going to be the last meeting for the 3 external MPC members whose tenure comes to an end in September.
All right, Raju, thank you so much for joining us and telling us what to expect from the MPC meet today. Let's slip into a break. Up next, we'll get you all the cues from the commodities market, so stay tuned for that. Welcome back. Well, it's time to talk all about commodities now. Manisha Gupta is joining us with all the update as always. Good morning, Manisha. Some relief in crude oil prices today.
Oh, it absolutely is, and a third straight day of the gains coming back into the market. If you look at overnight, we've seen 2% of gains in Brent crude prices. It's off its 7-month lows. This is after the U.S. crude inventories have declined by a 6th weekly decline. Also, the Middle East tensions seem to be coming back as Hamas now appoints a new leader, and the Sharara field in Libya continues to see lower production. So support clearly coming back in crude. Can say the same about the gold prices, which also seem to be trimming decline now. The global financial markets are stabilizing. Remember, investors earlier liquidated bullion assets to cover short squeeze in other asset classes, but the geopolitical tensions in Middle East, expectation of rate cuts from major global central banks going forward has been supportive back again for the gold prices. Cannot say the same about the metal prices because the industrial base metals, ferrous and non-ferrous, have continued to decline for yet another day right now. The weak Chinese data and the import and export numbers have not been supportive. The China trade data has shrunk more than expected, and that continues to weigh onto this sector.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Manisha, for joining us with all the updates. So that's what's happening in the commodity space. From commodities, let's now talk about all the news from the world of sports. Following a heartbreaking disqualification from the Paris Olympics, wrestler Vinesh Fogart has appealed to the Court of Arbitration for Sport and has asked that a joint silver medal be awarded to her. While the court's decision is still awaited, she took to social media to announce her retirement from wrestling. And in another setback, weightlifter Mirabai Chanu misses the bronze medal by 1 kilo. She finished 4th in the 49-kilogram category. Meanwhile, India's golden boy Neeraj Chopra is all set to aim for the gold medal later today. The Olympic champion had qualified for the finals in just 1 throw. Well, all good wishes with Neeraj Chopra. We'll be cheering him on. But for now, we'll take your leave on Power Breakfast. But do stay tuned. Bazaar Morning Call comes up next.